I saw a deposition by a gentleman who is in Louisiana, and he has been communicating with the Chinook people for a very long time. And I have to give great thanks to Janet for bringing this to my attention. Okay. Well, I'm just going to read to you from an article in a Louisiana paper, and it was Alexandria Town Talk. It's by Melinda Martinez, and she was interviewing a man that called himself Claude. So this is in the Kisatchie National Forest. So no matter where Claude goes, he can sense when there is a Sasquatch around him. He wasn't conscious of it earlier in his life, when he was busy working and raising a family, but even then he always knew that they existed. So Claude says there are signs that Sasquatches are out there. They live all over Louisiana. It's a matter of paying attention to your surroundings. That is absolutely key. So to avoid harassment and ridicule, Claude isn't disclosing his full name or the locations in Kisatchie National Forest. But he likes to talk about the elusive creatures in the hopes that it will be beneficial in lessening the fear that people may have. So for several years, Claude says he has been communicating with a few of them telepathically. We would know this as mind speak. So like Sasquatches, he finds peace and healing being out in the forest where he loves to camp. They talk about all kinds of things, including who they are, where they're from, and what their lifestyle is like. They are extremely intelligent. That's the one thing that people don't realise, just how intelligent these creatures are. They have a forest sense like a deer does, like a bear does, but they have a human side that is extremely intelligent, very rational, very practical. Claude found that Sasquatches refer to themselves as the people, and they don't like being referred to as Bigfoot because they feel that term is derogatory. They have a very strict code of conduct, much more so than humans do. The dominant male in the family is the lawgiver. His word is law, and everyone answers to him. They have no ill will toward human, but the main rule they must follow is to stay out of human sight. And that particular piece is very, very interesting. It may answer your questions, Lady Raven. I think you asked why they don't show themselves. So Claude says it was a female Sasquatch who first initiated contact with him. Says he was walking through the woods one day and this voice says, "Don't come in here." I heard it just as clear in my head as you and I are talking, he said. He stopped and heard the voice again. A female was in a thicket nursing her young. That was a private place for her, a safe place. So he complied and decided to go another way. Several months later, Claude communicated with her again telepathically. He asked her why she hadn't communicated with him before. And she replied, "Because your mind is too busy. From the time humans wake up until the time they go to sleep at night, their minds are constantly in motion. You wake up thinking about what you didn't do yesterday, what you need to do today, and it just snowballs. It gives us a headache. We don't do that. We don't have to. Life is simple for them, she told him. There is no complicated agenda. She was his main source of information for a long time and gave him frank and honest answers. Claude claims there are others he has communicated with, including an elder near Jenna. He only contacts him if he has a question. He doesn't care if people don't believe him. He knows it's happened. So lately he hasn't been communicating with them because they've dispersed. So this is really interesting, and I'm reading this because much of this parallels with my own experience. Much of it does. There are one or two things which I will point out as we go along, which I don't agree with. So one of the things was, where do they come from? Claude said another female Sasquatch told him they are descended from the Nephilim, and those are the offspring that the angels had with women, as it says in Genesis 6:4. They may have survived the flood, or angels could have returned and had more children, he said. Those who are half human and half angel are considered purebloods. They have the attributes of angels if they're pureblood. Claude says he was told this by another Sasquatch. Now, that I take issue with. I do not believe that they are from the Nephilim. However, there are many different types of Zanu, so maybe that particular type do. But I think it may be a biblical interpretation from somebody who has read a lot of biblical, believed in a lot of their teachings quite literally, and they have put their interpretation on it. So I take issue with that part. But this is his experience, this is Claude's experience, so we'll stick with what Claude is saying. So he then goes on to say they can do spooky stuff, disappearing right before your eyes, and they can travel in space and time, but they just call it travelling, not teleporting. Some lesser bloods can also travel this way, but all pure bloods can, he said. Now that resonates. I've heard it said that Sasquatch who don't do travelling by orb, which is what he's referring to there, that they are lazy, that they don't use the powers that they were given. So he then goes on to say that DNA studied conducted on hair found that it has shown that it has human female DNA, but the male DNA is an unknown primate. Well, I would take issue with that. And I think, let's think about a female human. If there was any interaction between a female human and a male Sasquatch. Just the practicalities of it are ridiculous. Relating to size and everything. It's just not going to work. How is a female going to carry a Sasquatch child, bearing in mind how big they are when they're born? It's not going to happen. So I would take issue with that. But this is his belief. So he's asking what do they look like? So the first Sasquatch that he saw was a young male. He said he was about 7 foot tall, covered in coal black hair, and the hair was loose and hanging about 4 inches down on his arms. He wasn't bulky or barrel-chested, but he was not fully mature physically and hadn't developed the muscles yet. So I'm thinking he's looking at about 11-year-old, 12-year-old, and I think come 13 they really start to bulk out. He said the Sasquatches in Louisiana don't develop bulk here because they don't need it here where it doesn't get cold like it does up north. Also, the wild game they go after isn't that big like the moose and grizzly bears in the northern part of the country. Their physical strength is phenomenal, like a chimpanzee in strength, said Claude. Well, I would say it was stronger than that. I would think their strength was equal to bear. So in response to what do they eat. Most of their prey is hogs, turkeys and deer, said Claude. They also tend to forage a lot and like places where there are lots of berries and nuts. They also like to eat mussels out of rivers. I agree with all of that. I think they are constant grazers. If there's any fruit or nuts on the trees, I believe they're constant grazers. So it then says, if you find a place where they have been, the tracks are all up and down the bank, mussel shells are everywhere, they crack them open and eat them out of the shell. They said they are also very good swimmers. Now the mussels might be something about omega-3, this type of, I would think it would be to do with vitamins, topping up their vitamins, because they're not going to get fat off a mussel, or they're not really going to get full up eating mussels. So he says they prefer to hunt at night to avoid people, but they do come out during the day. Now I think the reason why they hunt at night is because of their infrared vision and their ability to see in the dark. They can see their prey using the heat signature and auras much clearer than they would in the daytime. So what's their existence like? They are monogamous and they mate for life. They tap into the energy provided by nature. Everything has an energy. Every plant, everything, the rocks. If you can tap into that energy, you can make good use of it, said Claude. Any medicine they need for anything that's wrong with them is already out there. Tree bark, tree roots, tree leaves, grasses. So he's saying animals like deer and rabbits also have their own medicine. So I agree with what he's saying about energy. I have been saying that for quite a few years now regarding energy and trees and what nature provides. So we're so removed from the natural existence, we have to go back to relearn all of this. But if you live that existence like Sasquatch does, there's no questions what you need to do to be healthy or find shelter or whatever. It's just part of their lives. Sasquatch can build fires, but don't do it because it attracts attention. Well, I think they don't really need to in the open because they're warm enough. They don't cook their meat, they will only eat raw meat. I think also they may, if they are living in cave anywhere, they may use fire, they just don't need it. They do use hide, I know that. Hide to keep warm. So he's saying, where do they live? So Sasquatch live out on the land. They like areas with hardwood because pine forests don't have much to offer. Now I do take issue with that. It may be that the Sasquatch in his area, they don't like pine, don't need pine. They might have trees with a better conductivity, as it were. But here, they do. And they like the pine forests because it acts like a battery, like a cell, like a resource of power and energy, concentration. So I would take issue with that. So Claude goes on to say they like high ground because it has a tactical advantage. If they need to get a view of something, they shimmy up a tree. Well, that depends on how big they are. I think if you're 1,000-pound Sasquatch or an 800-pound Sasquatch, you ain't going shimmying up any tree. But this is said, that's why researchers tell people to not only look on the ground but up in the trees. You could walk under one and not know it. Well, I think the young ones do take that to heart. They can certainly get up the tree and hide there and literally become the tree. They do just that. They blend in so well. So they will have guide markers in their territory pointing to water and food sources and warnings about people. Well, I have seen all those. I believe a lot of the eye signs that I've seen, that look like an eyeball, I think that's about people. And I think also it's saying watch, look for people. I've seen sort of like arrow type things and they point towards water or a crossing, like a road, a track crossing. So I think there's quite a bit of truth in that. So he then goes on to say, what signs do Sasquatches use? Tree teepees are a typical sign that indicates home territory. The number of sticks in the teepee could be the number of members in a family. To create the teepee, they might take a small tree and lean it against the branch of a larger tree. They might also take a sapling, bend it and put a log on top of it to hold it down, and they can twist saplings. These can be used to mark an established pathway. I think they might be used for something else, those. I think they might be used as a means of portals coming through the arch. Claude doesn't state that, but I believe that's what they are for. So they have mental capabilities and spiritual powers. People don't realise Sasquatches could create utter mayhem if they wanted to. They can make people ill at the drop of a hat. He calls it being zapped. Most other Sasquatch researchers he knows have had similar experience when they go into areas where Sasquatches don't want them to be. Once while driving through Oklahoma, when he sensed the presence of a large male, Claude greeted him, and then he was hit with a severe headache. And he said, "We don't want to talk to you," and I said, "Good, I'll leave you alone." Just like that, the headache went away. That's a way of them attracting your attention from a distance. It's like using infrasound or ultrasound. It's a very sharp pain. I've actually had this when I went to post something in one of my videos, and they didn't want me to post it. It was part of an image they didn't want me to post. It looked innocuous to me, but they didn't want me to post it, and it felt like someone was tapping me with the point of their finger on the side of my head. It was quite interesting. There's also the energy thing. Their energy is colossal in comparison to ours, and they do emit an energy, and it clashes with our energy, and I think that's where a lot of the headaches come from. You may have heard me saying that I can feel that there's a lot of energy in an area. But I think that if you're in an area where they don't want you to go, they'll let you know very soon they don't want you to go, and you just know it. It's just like sensing whether somebody likes you or not, you know. It's very, very obvious. So do they need anything from human beings? So Claude asked a female Sasquatch if she needed anything. She said, "From you, peace. That's it. Just peace." And he sort of recognised that to mean peace from all humans. She told him the Sasquatches don't want what humans have because of what humans have had to sacrifice to get it. Personal freedom, personal choice. They just want to share the planet with us. That's it. Give them room to live their lives and they'll do the same for us. I pretty much have had the same thing. I know when I've asked if any of the families, when they've been having children, or if one of them, particularly when Edgar was unwell, and I asked if there was anything that I could bring for them, and they get everything they need. They don't need anything from us, but of course they love the sentiment. They love the sentiment. So I have asked this before, if there's anything that they need, and the answer has always been no, we've got everything. And they're very grateful, but they've survived for hundreds, quite possibly thousands of years without our help, and all we do is create a hindrance to them, really. Threaten their lives.